What if I told you that the reason you're feeling sad and lonely and depressed is because of the algorithm? I think most people will understand what I mean when I say algorithm, but in case you don't, what I'm referring to is the recommendation engine that apps like YouTube and TikTok and Facebook will use to push content to you that it thinks you might like. Think your TikTok For You page, your YouTube homepage, your Facebook feed, your Twitter feed, your Threads feed. This is all powered by the algorithm. Let me know if this has ever happened to you. You're scrolling through social media and you come across a video of a little Midwest singer doing a silly little dance to a silly little song. You give it a like and you sort of scroll past thinking nothing of it, right? Not even giving it a second thought. And before you know it, your entire feed is full of this singer and people doing this silly little dance. So of course you want to join in the hype, you want to join in on the trend. So you text your friends, "Oh my God, isn't Chapel Roan so cool?" And your friend responds back with, "Who? What do you mean who? She's like all over my feed. How do you not know who she is?" This is because my For You page is entirely different than your For You page and my friend's For You page and somebody's For You page that lives in Bangladesh. And this extends just beyond the social media apps and their algorithms. To an extent, this also extends to the on-demand streaming platforms like Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, HBO Max, or Max or HBO, whatever it's called now. Hi, Caitlin here, and in today's video, I want to explore the ramifications of this patchwork landscape of media and entertainment. Has the algorithm made us lonelier and more divided than ever, or has it actually united subcultures and created small communities? And is this a bad thing or a good thing? So when I was a child growing up in the early 2000s, I remember coming home from school and basically only having like 3 channels to surf through: Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, and Disney Channel. And I just had to basically watch whatever was on. Sure, I had 3 different channels to browse through, but I couldn't really go through the entire depth of their catalog like I can now with like Netflix or Hulu or even YouTube. Whatever was on, and that was what we were watching as a collective. But within this sort of lack of choices, I had the experience where I could go to my friend the next day and be like, "Hey, did you watch last night's episode of SpongeBob where he ripped his pants at Goo Lagoon? Wasn't that so funny? Wasn't that so cool?" And while I am now much older, I still want to go to my friends and talk about the trends and stuff that I'm seeing come across my social media, my YouTube, my For You page, all that stuff. But I find that that experience that I had as a child, being able to discuss the latest stuff that I was seeing with my friends, it's far and few in between nowadays. Going back to the Chapel Roan story that I was talking about in the intro of this video, she was popping up everywhere on my social media feed. So when I went to my friends expecting them to sort of chime in and we could have this big conversation about like how much we love her music, I was instead met with confused faces. And yeah, like, am I chronically online? For sure, most definitely. But at this point, her songs were already amassing millions of views on Spotify, on TikTok. NPR had already released the Tiny Desk concert starring Chapel Roan, and Nicole Raffi had already done like a 40-minute deep dive. So I was kind of like, yeah, no, she's mainstream. But that just didn't seem to be the case. With the sheer amount of entertainment and media that any one person could watch and that we have access to nowadays, it is so rare for anyone, even amongst your own social circle, to be watching the same thing at the same time. On YouTube, Mr. Beast still holds the title of like most famous or most successful YouTuber if you want to judge it by metrics. He's also famous for other things. If you've watched Dogpack 404's deep dive into this whole Mr. Beast situation, I'm not going to get into it here, but I think you guys should all give it a watch. It's super interesting and also super eye-opening. There are no ethical billionaires. But despite this, despite his size, despite his fame, despite the controversies that he's currently in, none of his videos are popping up on my YouTube recommended homepage, which is like strange, right? Because you would expect that since he is so big that he should be everything everywhere all at once. And to sort of take a step back and look at larger mainstream media, I would say that the biggest moments in pop culture of like the last decade was probably Game of Thrones or even Avengers Endgame. On the night that it aired its final episode, Game of Thrones amassed a total of 19.3 million viewers. As far as Avengers Endgame goes, it's kind of hard to get like a total number of tickets sold, but it did amass a total of $357 million opening weekend in the United States. And if I were to divide that by an average ticket price of say like $20, that comes out to be about 17.8 million tickets sold. Now, taking a step back in time, in the 90s and the early 2000s, we saw shows like Friends amassing 52.5 million views for its last episode. Seinfeld amassing 76 million views when it aired its last episode, and MASH, which is a little bit before my time, but when it aired its last show on February 28, 1983, it had a total of 106 million viewers the night that it aired. This is all in one night. And we're just not seeing these kinds of numbers today. And sure, Mr. Beast is amassing like hundreds of millions of views for each of his videos, but this is throughout the lifespan of the video. It's kind of hard for me to gauge what his video gets like the night that it's released. But the on-demand nature of entertainment nowadays has made it so that we are all kind of on our own timelines and bubble of pop culture events. So like instead of being able to watch the same episode with SpongeBob the night it airs and then going to school the next day and talking to my friends about how SpongeBob ripped his pants, I can't really gauge if they have even seen the episode of SpongeBob now. So instead of turning to my friends to talk about the latest episode of SpongeBob, I now turn to creators on the internet to listen to them talk to me about the latest episode of SpongeBob. And truly, there's nothing wrong with finding people on the internet who are talking about your hobbies and interests, right? That's not what I'm trying to say. I just bring this up because now that we can't talk about mainstream events like we used to when we didn't have the whole catalog of media available at our fingertips, we have, in a sense, lost an avenue for connection with our friends and peers. So if you've been on the internet in any capacity in the past couple of years, you would have seen a lot of different trends pop up left, right, center, kind of at breakneck speeds. I'm calling these microtrends. Well, it's not me. This has been labeled as microtrends. I'm not out here pioneering words or anything. And these trends usually last somewhere between a week or a month instead of like a season or a few years the way that trends used to. Do you have an Awala or a Stanley? Are you fox pretty or are you deer pretty? Cat pretty? Bunny pretty? Are you high or low visual weight? Do you want to be a clean girl, mafia wife, tomato girl? Is your style coquette, cottagecore, or maybe the best of them all, Sandler core? Or maybe everything I just said to you was a bunch of gibberish and you have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about. Which wouldn't really surprise me because again, like my corner of the internet is so vastly different than your corner of the internet and is so vastly different from my dad's corner of the internet. The trend cycle is usually attributed to fashion. Fashion trends used to span years and had the characteristic of being like pretty definable throughout the decades. Like the fashion of the 60s was so different than that of the 70s and of the 80s, of the 90s, etc., etc. And when looking at these styles side by side, you can really see the stark difference. And I think that's because fashion trend used to be heavily correlated with the identity of the decade. In the 60s, you saw flower power and hippie culture in response to the anti-war sentiment that was shared by the younger generation. In the 70s, you saw the rise of pantsuits and more tailored clothing in general as women were entering the workforce, usually just as secretaries, but we all have to start somewhere, right? And in the 80s is when you saw the rise of the punk subculture, which was a response to sort of anti-capitalist and anti-institutional sentiments that was shared among the youth culture as well. All this to say is that fashion used to be tied to your sense of identity, your sense of self, your class standing. But in today's culture, you can see someone dress punk for 2 weeks because that's what's trending on their side of the internet, and then dressing like Adam Sandler the next 2 weeks because that's the next thing that's trending. To me, it doesn't really seem like these trends, specifically in fashion, but extends to other things as well. It doesn't seem like these trends are really rooted in a deep sense of identity or subculture anymore, or even mainstream culture like it used to be. I think this is also in part due to the rise of fast fashion manufacturers like Temu and Shein, which produces thousands of new styles a day. I'm not even joking. Sources have stated that Shein adds somewhere between 2,000 to 10,000 new items to their website daily. I think that's another video in and of itself. I won't get into it too much now, but let's just say that fast fashion is a contributor. But I also think the prominence and rise of these microtrends is also a result of our collective loss of identity in ourselves and also in the groups that we feel like we belong to.
I logged off the app for 5 minutes and then I logged back on and everyone's talking about being demure and mindful, and I can't keep up because I thought we were having a brat summer. And I feel like having a brat summer does not go hand in hand with being demure and mindful. You know what I mean?
What's interesting to me is that these two trends that the creator is talking about in her TikTok, brat summer and demure and mindful, fall or whatever it's going to be, these identities are kind of in direct opposition to each other, and yet they're being fed to the same audience. I mean, at least for me, I personally am seeing both trends come across my feed. But can you really be brat and also demure at the same time? And for those who don't know what brat is or brat summer, here's a video of Charlie XCX, who's like sort of the mother of this trend, explaining to you what it is.
Yeah.
That's brat summer.
It can go that way, like kind of like quite like luxury, but
Yes.
it can also be like so like trashy. Just like a pack of cigs and like a Bic lighter
Yes.
and like a strappy white top.
Yeah.
With no bra.
Yeah.
That's like kind of all you need.
So why are these trends picking up so much steam? I think it's just like fun and quippy to say, like brat summer, I'm demure, I'm mindful. It's fun, you know? And B, two, I don't know what I was using previously. I think we also have this innate desire to be part of a collective because it helps define our own sense of identity and sense of self. Because through our relationship with a bigger group and those around us who we consider our community, we can know where we stand from a values and philosophies perspective. Okay, let's do a little thought experiment. If someone tells you that they are gonna have a brat summer, what does this tell you about this person? You didn't realize there was going to be homework, right? But it's fun, I swear. To me, this tells me that they're probably born in the mid 90s to the early 2000s. I think like squarely millennial and Gen Z. They're probably left leaning, probably chronically online. And I think they're probably really down to party and have a good time, and are also a little messy, you know? But not in an unhygienic way, but in a direct antithesis of the clean girl aesthetic kind of way. You know what I mean? As I was researching for this video, I also came across the strange phenomena of zinfluencers, which are influencers whose entire brand and personality revolves around zins, which are these little nicotine salt pouches that you stick in your mouth to like get a nicotine hit. These things have sort of blown up over the past year, with people on social media proudly displaying how many tins they've gone through. This has gotten so out of hand that the company has actually started experiencing supply issues. Like they literally can't keep up with the demand. But this isn't the strangest part, though, because to my surprise, it actually seems like the Conservative Party has sort of co-opted this identity and are really riding hard for it. Tucker Carlson, a famous conservative spokesman, is reportedly a big fan of Zins, saying that he uses it the moment he wakes up and only takes it out seconds before he goes to sleep.
If I could take a break to just promote my non-sponsor Zin, and these are 3s, and I normally use 6s, but I appreciate the gesture, but I do think nicotine does keep your testosterone levels up.
Really? I'd do one of those suppositories.
White young conservative males have also coined the term masculinity, a new form of masculinity whose ethos seems to revolve around relentless productivity, hustling, and working out. Greg Price, the communications director at the State Freedom Caucus Network, a group that works to get conservatives elected to state legislators, recently told Semaphore a man with nicotine, protein, caffeine, and creatine coursing through his veins is an unstoppable force. I think this whole thing is a little tongue-in-cheek, and no one actually believes that these little nicotine salt pouches is going to lead to becoming more of a man. But the correlation between taking Zins and being a conservative has gotten so out of hand that people have started joking that Zin is the gateway drug to becoming a fascist. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene, a far-right conservative congresswoman, chimed in when Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer called for a Food and Drug Administration investigation into the product. The rise of these apps and robust algorithms have also coincided with the rise of loneliness in our generation. And you think the juxtaposition would be kind of odd, right? Because we are more connected now than ever. We're like dialed in, we're plugged in, and we have access to more people than anyone has ever had throughout history, throughout time. And yet we're also more lonely than ever. Around May of 2023, the U.S. Surgeon General, which is the highest medical office in the United States, released an 82-page document about America's loneliness epidemic and how it could actually be detrimental to our health. In recent years, about 1 in 2 adults in America reported experiencing loneliness. And that was before the COVID-19 pandemic cut off so many of us from our friends, loved ones, and support systems, exacerbating loneliness and isolation. Loneliness is far more than just a bad feeling. It harms both individual and societal health. It is associated with greater risk of cardiovascular disease, dementia, stroke, depression, anxiety, and premature death. The mortality aspect of being socially disconnected is similar to that caused by smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day, and even greater than that associated with obesity and physical inactivity. So what's the cause of this loneliness epidemic? Obviously, there's a lack of community aspect to it, right? But how's that possible when these apps, social media, and entertainment platforms have made it so that we're more connected than ever, that we're more plugged in than ever? How is it that we could be losing our sense of community when the internet has sort of provided a platform for you to be able to connect with anyone, anywhere, anytime about any obscure interest that you may have? As I've been hinting at throughout this entire video, the state of our media is that everything is designed to keep you scrolling. That means that the algorithm directly caters to you and only you. These algorithms were designed by very smart people who were paid very well to figure out the best way to keep you on your phone, to keep you scrolling, to keep you watching, to keep you engaged, to keep you consuming, to keep you interacting. So all that to say that the algorithm has really created these microcosms of pop culture that is so individually catered and specific to the person. And because of that, I think we've kind of lost the community behind mainstream pop culture that we used to have a while back. Because like I've been saying, I'm definitely watching that episode of SpongeBob, but I'm not entirely sure if my friends are watching the same episode of SpongeBob, right? Maybe they don't even like sponges or bobs. You know, it used to be that we were able to find like communities and other people that shared the same interests with us, like out in real life, because we all shared this same thing at the exact same time in media, right? But now that people are on their own timelines and experiencing things differently at a different speed, altogether, it is so much harder to find like the same sense of community that we used to, you know, where mainstream pop culture used to be like a gathering place for a lot of people. There are now different like subcultures interspersed everywhere. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because it's sort of opened up doors where there weren't before for people to express and find other people who find like the same weird things enjoyable like they do. Sure, maybe my friends aren't watching that same episode of SpongeBob, but I found other people on the internet who have watched that episode of SpongeBob, right? I mean, look at what I'm doing, right? I'm making a video essay. I'm going to post it on YouTube, and someone somewhere out there is going to watch this video, but it's not like we are having like a two-way conversation. It's mostly one-sided, where I'm like talking at you. And while I would love it if everyone who watched this video engaged and left like insightful comments down below, the fact of the matter is that most people are probably just gonna watch this, click next, but only after watching the whole thing, right? Social identity theory, proposed by Henry Tajfel and John Turner in the 1970s, posits that individuals derive a portion of their self-concept from their membership in social groups. The theory seeks to explain the cognitive processes and social conditions underlying intergroup behaviors, especially those related to prejudice, bias, and discrimination. Tajfel and Turner proposed that the groups, i.e. social class, family, football team, etc., people belong to were important sources of pride and self-esteem. So to put it in layman's term, it is kind of an us versus them situation, right? We derive our sense of identity through our relationship with others who we perceive to be in the same group as us, but also through our relationship with others who we perceive to be different from us, to be outside of our group. And back when media was a little bit more homogenous, it was a lot easier for us to be able to find like a group of people that we shared some common ground with and shared some interests with. But now that the state of media is a lot more fractured and everyone kind of has their own corner of the internet, there are a lot more thems and a lot less us. You know what I mean? I think this is why there is also a lot of tension and strife in politics right now. Because in an age where the groups that we feel like we're a part of are getting smaller and smaller, people want to cling on to what they do have in common with even more conviction, right? And what does this mean? What does this entail? Race, gender, politics, religion, nationality. I mean, you've seen the shit that's going on online. In an August 2019 internal memo leaked in 2021, Facebook has admitted that the mechanics of our platform are not neutral, concluding that in order to reach maximum profits, optimization for engagement is necessary. In order to increase engagement, algorithms have found that hate, misinformation, and politics are instrumental for app activity. The more incendiary the material, the more it keeps users engaged, the more it is boosted by the algorithm. How's that for scary? So the good of this is that we're being fed content that we actually want to see, right? And we're being exposed to things that we're actually interested in. I like to joke around that the algorithm knows me better than my family does, but at this point, it's not really a joke, is it? Like, my family doesn't know that I cry to wholesome, heartfelt TikTok videos of veterans interacting with their grandchildren. Man, that one gets me like every time. And there are other good things about the algorithm as well. I think it's done a very good job at marketing for small mom and pop shops and basically allowing them to continue keeping their doors open and getting customers in. I think that is some wholesome shit, dude. And you know, those businesses probably would have gone out of business if the algorithm hadn't picked them up. What's his name? The Keith guy on TikTok has helped so many countless businesses just by like reviewing their food. And like the algorithm is very good at recommending us things that we never would have come across naturally. For example, in personal experience, I came across a Bluey video from the Odd Ones Out and it piqued my interest. So I gave it a shot. I watched a couple episodes and let me tell you, the sense of peace and nostalgia that I feel when I watch an episode, it's unmatched. The show is so good, and I never would have come across it if it hadn't been recommended to me by my YouTube algorithm. But really, like, I can't recommend it enough. If you just want to like relax, chill, have a good time, and also have your heartstrings tugged and cry, it's a good time. Okay, now we're going to talk about some less fun things about the algorithm, the radicalization aspect of it. So the way that these algorithms work is that the app that you're using, whatever it's on, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, it records your engagement with the post, how long you spent on the post, whether you liked it or not, whether you commented, maybe you disliked it. Then it uses those metrics to push out other videos or photos or posts that you might be interested in based on other people who share the same interests or who engaged the same way that you did, which is fine. If you're watching videos of like paint drying or cats with cameras strapped to their collar taking walks around neighborhoods, you know, wholesome stuff, that's fine. Love it. But you know, maybe you're watching a Jordan Peterson video and you spend a little bit longer than usual. Maybe you even give it a like. That's cool. That's fine. Then the algorithm starts to test you a little bit, pushes out content that's a little more right-leaning. You agree with some of the sentiments, you give some videos a like, and then bam, next thing you know, you're watching a video of some guy yelling about the government adding chemicals to the water that's making the frogs gay.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
I wish I was kidding. And to bring it back to Facebook's leaked memo, the more incendiary the material, the more the algorithm pushes it.
I got radicalized into the far right on TikTok. Technically I didn't, but an account that I made did, and this is a graph of what that looked like. I just co-published the study and I'll link it in the comments, but I'll also break it down right now here. So we wanted to examine whether or not transphobia is a gateway prejudice that leads to like broader far-right radicalization. So I made a brand new TikTok account and followed 14 creators known to post transphobic content. Then I started scrolling my For You page where I exclusively engaged with transphobic content and I documented the major narratives of the more than 400 videos recommended to me. Obviously, TikTok didn't just like give us neo-Nazi content immediately. I actually didn't get my first Nazi symbol until video 141. But the more I interacted with transphobic content, the more I was fed not only more transphobic content, but also homophobia and misogyny and racism and anti-Semitism. So I didn't actually have to interact with racist content to be fed white supremacist content. I just had to engage with transphobic content. What you see in this graph is the TikTok algorithm starting off with a normal feed, you know, memes, recipe videos, whatever, and then going, oh, you're transphobic. Have you tried hating the gays? What about women? So it appears that transphobia alone can radicalize a TikTok user.
So I know I've said some pretty semi-incendiary things in this video about the state of our media and the algorithm. And I stand by everything I said. But at the end of the day, it really is just a recommendation engine. And it's really up to us to be like mindful consumers of the kind of content that we are consuming. People will say shit online just to get a reaction out of you, whether it's true or not. That's why rage bait is so popular nowadays. You see those videos getting like millions of views. And that's because it's playing on your emotion, because it gets views. It works. Anytime anyone can get any kind of reaction out of you, it's good for their bottom line. It's good for their pockets. So that's just something that you have to be mindful of when you are watching whatever you're watching online. So yeah, keep that in mind the next time you hear someone talking about gay frogs. At the end of the day, I think we all just want to be part of communities that share the same values and philosophies as us. And I think we all just want to know ourselves like a little bit better. Whatever way you go about trying to find yourself or find your community and your values and philosophies, like as long as you're not hurting yourself, hurting anyone else, like go for it, have fun. I want to thank you all for watching this video all the way through. If you liked anything that you heard today and you want to see more, maybe consider subscribing. Definitely leave a comment. I would love to talk about this with anyone who wants to talk about it with me. Also, let me know if you're having a brat girl summer or you're being demure and mindful for the fall. And yeah, that's it for me. Okay, bye.